Hello friends, I asked ChatGPT which is the most popular language for making enterprise level big applications, and in the result Java is at the top. So if you want to join big MNC or enterprise level companies, then Java is the right choice for you. Now the question is, how do you crack Java interviews for those companies? Before moving on, here are some students who shared their success stories with me in the comment section. So whenever you get the success or offer, kindly share in comments. For now, you can just like and subscribe. That is the great motivation for me to make more content on cracking interviews and helping more candidates in getting the jobs, okay? For that, I am sharing the top 30 interview questions which are like the foundation and the minimum eligibility criteria which you must know before attending any Java interview. Okay, so here in the first chapter, we will cover 7 questions on Java basics like JDK, JRE, JVM. Then in the second chapter, questions about control statements, strings and arrays. Next, question from classes, objects, access specifier, this keyword and getter setter methods. Then questions from inheritance and polymorphism. And finally, questions on encapsulation and abstraction. So if you are experienced in Java, then these questions will look a bit easier for you, right? But then, do you remember this complete process of JDK, JRE, JVM, JIT? Or do you remember this use of the static keyword? Or do you know how the string and string builder are stored differently in Java memory? Now, most importantly, do you know which concept you will use while building application? For example, when to use the if else, when to use the ternary operator, and when to use the switch cases in real application. Okay, so these kinds of questions I will cover in this top 30 questions. Maybe you know 20%, 30% of the answer, but sometimes we know the wrong answer. So this video will remove all your confusions and make your foundation very strong, rock solid. Okay, so let's start with the first chapter here, and as you already know, here we will see questions on JDK, JRE, JVM, main method, bytecode, data types, etc. So let's start with the first question. What is Java? Here is the simplest definition of Java. Java is a high-level object-oriented programming language. High-level language because when you compile a Java language program, then first it will be converted into bytecode, which is a intermediate language. And bytecode will further converted into machine or native code, which is a low-level language. Okay. In the upcoming question, I will explain the process of this converting Java to bytecode then to machine code in detail. But now you know Java is a high-level language, right? Then Java is object-oriented also because Java uses objects and classes to structure the data and functions. Okay. And in Java programs, we can easily apply object-oriented concepts like encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, and inheritance. That's why Java is an object-oriented programming language. So all these concepts, object-oriented concepts, we will explore in upcoming questions in detail. What are JDK, JRE, and JVM? How a Java program compiled or executed? Let's understand with the help of a simple diagram. Suppose you have a very basic Java program, firstcode.java. Okay. Now before running this program, if there is any syntax error here, then Java will automatically show it to you, right? That is called compile time error checking, which will happen automatically even before running this program. Now the question is, how does it automatically happens? This is done by a kit which we call the Java Development Kit or JDK. which we install just before running the Java programs. Okay, so what happens inside this JDK kit, we will have many tools for executing Java programs, and one of those tools is the Java compiler tool. And this Java compiler tool is used to compile the above Java program. Okay, meaning Java compiler tool of JDK is responsible for checking and showing any kind of compile time errors in the Java program. And also it converts the Java program to bytecode. Let me tell you how. Suppose this is your code, Java code, and suppose you are also using some Java class libraries inside it, like string class, array list class. Okay, then all those libraries will be present inside the JRE. So it will contain all the libraries code. JRE is what? JRE is Java Runtime Environment, and it contains libraries and other things also, and it is also present inside the JDK only. Okay, now listen carefully. When you are writing the Java code, then the Java compiler side by side compiling and converting your code plus the library code which it is getting from the JRE. If you are using any library in your code, then only. Then that code will be converted to bytecode by the Java compiler, and that is also called the compile time process. This is whole compile time process before running the program. Remember, until now we have not run this program, and bytecode is already generated by the Java compiler. Now when you press the run program button or run command, after that it will be runtime. Okay, what will happen next? JDK will have the JRE, right? And JRE will have the JVM inside it, and JVM will contain the JIT compiler, okay, which will finally execute and convert the bytecode into the native code or the machine code, you can say, which is the ultimate code which your computer and hardware can understand. Okay, so this conversion of bytecode to native code, machine code, is called runtime. Okay, if there is any error, then it is called runtime error and in the runtime. Great, that is the whole story. And yes, apart from JIT compiler, JVM also do memory management, thread handling, etc. And yes, remember one thing, JVM is present inside JRE and JRE is present inside JDK, meaning you only need JDK to install on your system to run the Java programs. So that is the whole process that happens in the background when you writing the Java program, and after that you are running. Okay, also here I have written the simplest description definition of JDK, then JRE, then JVM, then JIT. So basically whatever I have explained, all this is here in the written format, so that later if you want to refresh or revise all these concepts, then rather than listening to the complete video again, just have a look for 3-4 seconds and your revision will be done. That's a faster way of revision just before the interviews, right? Hi friends, here is a quick notification. These 30 questions are part of my full top 200 interview questions course. In this course, I will similarly share 200 questions from these 20 topics in a step-by-step manner, so that even if you are new to Java, still you will understand all the questions. And there is a bonus chapter also which will include Java programming questions. Also, this PPT and the PDF book of 200 questions from which I am teaching, this is available for download. The link is in the descriptions. Many students were able to crack the interviews by my courses, and I am sure you will also. What are the main features and advantages of Java? Now I will show you 5 main features of Java, and if you are experienced in Java, then you can easily understand them. But if you are new in Java, then revisit these features and advantages again after some time. Okay. The first advantage of the Java language is that Java is platform independent, meaning Java programs can run on any operating systems platforms like Windows, Linux, etc. Okay. The second feature is that Java is object oriented, meaning Java supports object oriented concepts like features like encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. Okay. Third feature is Java is robust and secure. Robust because Java can have automatic memory management concept. Okay, you do not have to remove the memory and all, so that is done by Java itself. And secure, Java have many features for security. Next feature is Java supports multi-threading. Yes, and the last advantage is Java has rich standard libraries. Rich standard libraries means, for example, suppose you want to perform sorting, filtering in your application. Then Java has many inbuilt classes and functions for these common functionalities. Okay, so inbuilt means Java already have some classes and functions inside it. You just have to call those functions to use them. Okay, that is inbuilt. All right. Whatever now I have explained, I have written here in very simplest terms, and that will help you in revision, and that is the answer of this question. Now, yes, one more thing. This is like a very high level idea, but in upcoming questions we will discuss more questions on what is multi-threading, how Java implements multi-threading, what are the standard libraries, many standard libraries we will discuss. Then most importantly, the object oriented concepts, which is very important from interview point of view, that also we will cover in very detail. Okay, what is main method in Java? What is the role of public, static, and void in it? This is a coding question, so let's see the code. Here is our very first basic program in Java. Class I will explain later, okay, in upcoming questions. Let's focus on this main method. See, we already know inside JDK we have JVM. JVM, right? JVM is what? JVM is a program only which is created by the Java creators. Okay, now listen carefully. Whenever you execute any program, the JVM program will first execute it. And like we call methods in our normal Java program, similarly the JVM program will call this main method from inside it. Okay, so JVM program will call the main method. That's how this main method will be executed. Got it? In a way, you can also say that the main method in Java is the first method to be executed by the JVM. Or you can say that main method is the entry point for a Java program. Okay. Now the second part of the question is, what is the role of public, static, and void? Okay, these keywords. See, if you are new to Java, new to these keywords, then I will explain them in detail in upcoming question. But here I will give you a very short description of these keywords. Okay, so public is an access specifier, meaning by using this public keyword, now your main method will be accessible from outside, even outside this first code class. And that is the reason why the JVM program, which is outside this first code class, is still able to access your main method. That is the reason. Okay, then this main method can't be accessible if this is not public. Suppose I do it private. Private means now this main method is not accessible outside this first code class, and if I will try to run this, so see at the bottom here you will found main method not found in first code. Okay, because main method is not accessible by the JVM. Clear? The second keyword is static. which makes this main methods as a static method, meaning you can call this main method directly from inside the JVM without even creating the object of this first code class. Okay, so that is the purpose of a static. And then we have void, which means main method is not going to return anything. That's it. Again, don't worry if you are new to these keywords. I will cover in detail this static also in detail in upcoming questions. Alright. Great. Now I have copied all the code here, and here also I have posted the description of public keyword, then a static keyword, then what is the purpose of void and main method. All I already explained, but this can help you in faster revision before the interviews, right? What is Java bytecode? What is high level and low level code? All the time we are saying Java is converted to bytecode. But what is this bytecode? See, here is our Java code, okay? Then with the help of the Java compiler tool inside the JDK, this Java code will be converted into this kind of bytecode. So see how complex is this bytecode, okay? This is the same thing, bytecode. And this is complex, that's why we never write bytecode code directly, okay? We write simple Java program, and then it is the responsibility of JDK to convert that into bytecode. Okay, now the simplest definition of bytecode is here. Java bytecode is a platform independent intermediate code generated by the Java compiler. Simple, right? Now what is high level and low level code? So you already know the answer. Java is the high level, bytecode is the intermediate level, and native machine code is the low level code. Okay, great. I hope now you are feeling more confident about the Java program execution, right? What are variables and data types? What are the types of data types? Remember one thing, the primary responsibility of any software or web application is to process the data by the help of function. For example, in employee management application, we basically manage and manipulate the data only of employees with the help of function. That is the purpose of software application. Now let me show you the code for variables. Here is an empty main method. Okay, so like this, first we can declare the any variable, and then we can initialize the value of that variable like this. Okay, so now this declaration and initialization can be done in a single line, and that is how, like this. Okay, that is how we declare and initialize in a same line. Okay, now we can print these variables count1 and count2, and if I will run the code, run Java program, so here in the output you will find this value 100 and 200. Okay, so data, and now what is data type? These are variables. Now what is data type? Data type, for example, this int define the type of the variable. In short, variable and data types together are used to store and handle data in your program. Okay, great. Now the same code and the definition I have printed here in the book itself. Now how many types of data types are there? See, here are the two main categories of data types, primary data types and reference data types. But these are categories, like electronics is a category, but the actual products are TV, fridge, mobile. These are actual products. Similarly here, these byte, int, float, class, array, these are the actual data types, but they are categorized into two categories, primitive and reference data type. And we will explore the differences between these primitive and reference data types in upcoming questions, which is a very important question. What are the differences between primitive and reference data types? Very important question. So if we have a primitive data type like this, then in the memory, the variable x and its value 10 will be directly stored at this address in the memory stack like this. Okay, but if we have a reference data type like this, a string in our Java program, then it will be stored something like this. Here first the variable, then the value reference will be stored at this address in the stack memory, but the value is not here. That will be in the heap memory at this address location, which is basically the reference. Okay, that means we are maintaining two types of memory for reference data types. One is a stack and another is a heap. Now let's conclude the differences between them. First difference is primitive data types store actual values directly in the memory. Okay, whereas reference data types store references of the value or object and the actual values in the heap memory, different memory. Okay, next difference is primitive data types mostly hold single values, integer single value like above, okay, right in the stack memory. But the reference data types can hold multiple values. For example, a single variable array in a stack can hold multiple values inside the heap memory. Okay, so that is the advantage of reference data type. Okay, so great. Then next difference is, primitive data types have fixed storage. Once you decided, it is final. Okay, for example, int have a fixed storage, whereas reference data types have variable storage sizes, meaning you can add multiple values in the heap memory anytime corresponding to a single variable in a stack like an array. Okay, so this is also an advantage why we have this complex memory management for reference types. Okay, last difference is primitive data types are stored in the stack memory, you already know, whereas reference data types are stored in the heap memory with their references actually stored in the stack. Great, that is the differences between the primitive and non-primitive data types. All are written here so that later when you are revising, then you can revise them in 2-3 seconds only from the book. Alright, congrats for completing the first chapter. Now here is one piece of advice from my experience. Always try to elaborate the answer with definition and try to relate it with your own project examples. Okay, for example, I used interface or inheritance for creating the base classes. So speak like this in interviews. Please don't give one-line answers. Alright. Now in this chapter, we will cover questions about control statements, break, continue, loops and conditional statements, then string builder and arrays. So let's start with the first question of this chapter. What are control statements in Java? Let me explain with an example. Suppose you start the Java program with a simple variable initialization I equal to 0. Now after that, you are checking a condition using the if condition whether I is greater than 0. If I is greater than 0 is true, then flow 1 is the right flow and this and 1 will be executed. And if I is not greater than 0, then flow 2 is the flow and 2 will be executed. Okay, and you know the result because I equal to 0, therefore the second flow will be executed, the and 2 will be executed, right? So basically this if condition is an example of control statement, because the definition of control statement is control statement manages the flow of execution in a program, meaning the program will execute at this side or this side, that will be decided by the control statements. Okay, now listen carefully. In your Java program or application, which flow to choose and which flow not to choose, is decided by the control statement. And same as this if condition, we have multiple other control statements which help us to decide this. Okay, so here are the three categories. One is conditional statements, then there are looping statements and branching statements. These are the categories. Inside the conditional statements, we have the if else, we already know. Then we have the switch statement, and then we have the ternary operators. Okay, then inside the looping statement, we have the for loop, while loop, do while loop and for each loop. So as I said, these are the categories. Conditional is different, looping is different, and branching. Under the branching statement, we have the break keyword and the continue and the return keyword. Okay, so in the upcoming questions, I will cover all these control statements in separate question. Okay, by using all these control statements, you can decide the flow of execution in your application. Great. And yes, one more thing. Actually, this ternary operator and for each are not actually the control statements. Basically, for example, this ternary operator is used to simplify the if-else condition only. Ternary operator is an operator, which I already explained. But I don't want to confuse you. So consider ternary operator also a control statement, and for each is also used to simplify the for loop only. But you can also consider it as a separate control statement in Java. Great. That is the answer of this question, and in upcoming question we will discuss and see all these control statements in detail. When to use which type of conditional statements in real world application. So this is the actual very important and very good interview question. How you will decide which conditional statement is good for you in your application at what moment. Okay, so here I will compare the code of all them side by side. Okay, first we have the if else condition code here, and then we have the ternary operator code here, and finally we have the switch statement code here. So now we will first start by understanding the if else condition, when to use it in our application. Now here you can see if else condition can handle any type of complex condition, meaning this if keyword, and inside that you have multiple conditions here. Okay, multiple and multiple or operators, logical operators can be handled inside the if condition. Okay, and inside this curly braces you can have multiple lines of statements can be executed for in the if or else if or else block. Okay, so the conclusion is that if else is good for complex, different and multi-line execution. Alright, and the benefit of if else is if else cover all the kinds of scenario. So it's like it will cover everything for any condition. Alright, now the second type of conditional statement is this ternary operator. Right, here is the code. You can see here one thing. The ternary operator have three operands, right? 1, 2 and 3, which I already explained also. So here first is this condition. Okay, so this I am directly putting is 0, but basically it is returning the true. So it's a conditional only. It can be a condition also here. Okay, and the second and third operands basically are the result which we are here are a single value results and are very simple, 10 and 20. So the point is ternary operators are good for single condition and single value evaluations or results. Okay, the ternary can handle only if and else. You cannot handle the else if block. There will be only two possibilities. Okay, also like in if block you have multi lines of execution, but in ternary operator that is not possible, only single value result. multi-line will be very dirty code, right? But the benefit of ternary operator is ternary operator will give a very short one-line syntax for simple conditional statements. Okay, otherwise you have to write 3-4 lines of the code in the if-else condition for writing this same thing, right? Great. Now the third type of conditional statement is this switch statement, and here is the sample code. Let's just understand. Using a switch case is a good idea if this variable day value is a single value. Okay, single value, and it has consistent, because you have to consistently compare it with these cases. Consistent means like this is here 2 only. It should not be like changing. For example, in the if else block, if the left side can be anything, if is different, then else if is different, left side, then many else if, it will be different. But in switch case, the left side value is always be the same. The day value will be the same. Right side 1, 2, that can be different. Alright. The second point is that switch case can efficiently manage multi-line executions also, like the if else, but ternary operators cannot. Finally, the conclusion is switch case is better for same left side values. Alright, and the benefit of switch case statement is it looks more cleaner and more readable and more structured as comparison to the if else condition. So basically you can do the same thing using if else condition, but you can see the difference. Switch case looks more structured, right? And also switch cases are generally used more with enums, which I will definitely explain in the upcoming question. But yes, that is the comparison, and now you know when to use what kind of conditional statement in your application at what moment, right? What is string builder? What is the difference between string and string builder? This is a very important question from interview point of view. I will explain string builder by comparing it with string. Okay. See, both string and string builder are inbuilt classes provided by Java. Now I will show you the code side by side and show you the differences. Here is the code of the string class. Okay. And here what we are doing, we have a variable string literal str. Then we are modifying this str by adding the str plus happy. So basically we are adding some text to the existing string. Okay. Now the value of the str will be interview happy. Okay. Similarly, on the right side, we have the string builder example. Here string builder object sp. First we are assigning it to interview, and then to this object we are appending or adding happy. Means again the final value of the sp object will be interview happy. Now the question is, what is the difference? Okay, the difference is string is immutable and string builder is mutable. So what is immutable and mutable? See, string is immutable because its value can't be changed. Now from outside you will say that okay, the value has been changed, right? But internally, inside the Java memory, the story is different. Here if you see, inside the memory, the first variable str has a different location. Okay, and the second variable str will have a different location. Alright, meaning every time you modify this str variable, inside the memory a new variable will be created. Okay, so that also means that once a string is created, it cannot be changed, and that's why we call string is immutable. They can't be changed. Alright, now let's see how the string builder is mutable. Now see, string build also this SBI object is also modifying the existing object, right? But here if you see in the memory, the variable present at the same location, only the value is updated to the new value interview happy. No new object is created, no separate location is required. So that is why string builder is mutable. Mutable means things which can be modified. Okay, so that is the difference between them, and whatever I have explained, I have written here in the very simple terms so that later you can easily revise. And now in the upcoming question, I will explain when to use a string and when to use a string builder in your real applications. Okay. What is an array? Why do we need arrays in real applications? So why we need arrays? See, in application, one very important task is to manage and handle lots of data. Suppose this is the data in your application, okay? But this data is unstructured because normally we have to hold each data and every piece of data in multiple variables, okay? Some are integer types, double types, and different data types are there. Now to make this data structured and well organized like this, Java provide us with a data type called arrays. See, like this. So now listen carefully. With the help of the arrays, we can group the related data together. Okay, the related data will be in a group in a single array. So now there are only 4 or 5 arrays which are enough to maintain or organize a huge amount of data, right? So this is well managed and well organized way. Okay, so that is the benefit of array also. And yes, you can put one category of data in one array. For example, this is the array example of the arrays. These fruits, this is a category. Now in the array elements, you will have apple, banana, orange, and the array index will be 0, 1, 2. So what is array index? Index is like the location of the element in an array. Okay, index generally starts from 0 and then it is 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, depending on the number of elements you have in a single array. Okay, so great, that is the brief idea of an array. And finally, here is the definition. An array is a data type that allows you to store multiple values in a single variable. Okay, and here is the use of array. Arrays are used to store related data in a structured way. Array also enables sequential access via indexes. Okay, now in upcoming question, I will show you how to declare, initialize and implement array, which is very simple. Great, and congratulations on completing the second chapter. Where there is a will, there is a way. Believe me or ask any experienced person. Interviews are the best way of learning and best way of earning also. Okay. So now in this third chapter, we will cover questions about OOPs, main concepts, classes, objects, access specifier, this keywords and getter setter methods. Basically all the members of a class. Okay. So let's start with the first question. What is OOPs? What are the main concepts of OOPs? So by using OOPs concepts, we can create clean and clear structure for the softwares and web applications. Okay. Now the question is, what are those concepts of OOPs and how they provide clear structure? So here are the OOPs concepts. First is the object, then classes, then inheritance, then polymorphism, then abstraction and encapsulation. So OOPs stands for object oriented programming, and object oriented means it is a way to create software application around the objects only. Okay, in the upcoming question we will start with the object and then we will cover all these OOPs concepts one by one in separate questions. And most importantly, we will explore when to use these concepts in real applications. Okay, in which situation, why they are so important. Okay, before that, here is the definition of OOPS. OOPS stands for Object-Oriented Programming, which means OOPS is a way to create software around objects. Second point is, OOPS provide a clear structure for software and web application. Okay, I'm writing it here in the book so that later you can easily and quickly revise it from here. What are access specifiers? What are the public and private specifiers? Again, a very important question. Here is the table and we have 4 types of access specifiers: public, protected, default and private. Right now I will explain you about only the public and private only, and default and protected in upcoming question. So let's first see the code example quickly. Here we have the student class with two fields. One is marked as public, which is name, and one is marked as private, which is city field. Okay. Remember, access specifiers can be used with fields, class names, functions and constructors also. Okay. So now I will try to access these fields from other class. So we have a science student class here, and inside that we have a getStudent function. Okay. To access the fields of student class, first we will create the object of student class, student object. Okay. Now listen carefully. When I will try to access and print the public field, which is name of a student class, via the student object, then that will work completely fine, and that is accessible because public members are accessible inside their own class and even outside their own class. Okay, outside the class. Okay. But now I will try to access the private field city of the student class via this student object, and this is showing the error. You can see the red underline here. That is the compile time error, and because it is not accessible. Okay, private fields are not accessible outside the class. Okay, so outside the student class you cannot access this city field. Okay. Alright, great. That is the whole story. Now the same code I have pasted here also, and here is the definition of access specifier. Access specifier are keywords used to set the access level for classes, variables or fields, methods and constructors. Now if you see in this table, then you can see that public members are accessible within their own class and within the package and within the subclass, everywhere. What is subclass, that I will tell you later, but public members are accessible everywhere. Whereas the private field is only and only accessible within the same class, not anywhere else. Alright, that is the answer. Now in the upcoming question, I will explain you the default access specifier, which is very interesting. What is the role of this keyword in Java? When should we use it? Very important question, and by the end of this video, I will clear all your confusion. Let's understand with the help of the code. Here is a employee class, and inside that we will first declare the private field experience of the employee. Okay, exp stands for experience. Now then, in our main method, we will create the object of the employee class, which is emp. And then by using this emp object, we can set the value of this experience, something like this: emp.experience equal to 10. But this way of setting field value is not recommended because it violates encapsulation concept of OOPS. I will explain you later in a separate question how it violates, but here let's focus on this keyword. Okay, so first we will comment this approach. Okay, and instead of directly assigning the field value like this, we will call the setter method of this employee object. This set experience is the setter method, and we will pass the value as the argument here. Okay, then we will define this setter method like this above in the employee class. Okay, and here in the parameter we will receive the argument which we are passing from here. Alright, clear? Now inside this setter method we will set the field. This we will write this code, this dot experience equal to experience, basically setting the field value. Okay, now listen very carefully. Here this dot experience will represent this class field value. Okay, because this keyword refers to the current instance of the class, meaning if you put this keyword dot in front of anything, that point to the current class fields. Okay, now you may ask why we are using this keyword and not directly using just the experience field. The reason here is we are receiving the experience in parameter also, right? So this experience is different from the class field above experience. Alright, this experience parameter we are receiving from here. Okay, so that's why we use this dot experience to point to the class field. Now this setter method purpose is to set this class field experience value which is received from the parameter experience. That's how we set the class field values, by using these setter methods and not by directly assigning them like this. Got it? Now finally we can then print the value emp.experience. Okay, and yes, getting experience like this is we are getting experience, and this is also not recommended. And in the upcoming question I will separately cover the getter method also quickly, but for now we are getting like this only. And now if I run the application, then here at the bottom we will get the 10 as the result as the employee experience. Alright, now you know the role of this keyword. Now the same code I have pasted in my book also like this, and I have pointed out how this dot experience is pointing to the class field experience. Okay, so that later when you revising you should immediately get the idea. Finally, here is the definition of this keyword. This keyword refers to the current instance of the class. And here is the use of this keyword. This keyword differentiates between instance class field variables and the parameter which is received from the from the main method. So that this keyword differentiate between them. Okay, otherwise if you will here write exp equal to exp, then both will be like parameters, so that will be confusing. That's why this dot experience for setting this experience, referring this class field, because this experience class field belongs to this employee class. Alright, that's the advantage, that's the purpose of this keyword. What are getter and setter methods? I already explained setter method, but if you missed that, then let's quickly conclude and then explore the getter methods. Okay, let's go to the code. So here is our employee class, and first we will declare one experience integer field, private field like this. Here exp stands for experience. Then we have the main method. Okay, and inside that we are creating the object of the employee class. The object name is emp. Okay, then we can set the field value something like this, but as I told you, this is not recommended. Okay, it violates the encapsulation concept of OOPS, which I will explain later. To set the value of above experience field, first we will call the set experience method like this from the object, and then we will pass the experience as an argument here. Now we will define this set experience method something like this inside the employee class. Okay. Sorry. So that is called the setter method, and here in the brackets it will receive the parameter which is passed from here, and then inside this dot experience equal to experience will set the field value this, okay, from this parameter value which I already explained when I explained the purpose of this keyword. Alright. Now similarly, to get the value of this, now until now we have just setting the value of the experience field. Now to get the value, we will define a method get experience like this, which is the getter method. Alright, and then from here we are returning the experience which we already set by using the set experience method. Alright, so when we are returning to the main method, we can call the employee.getExperience here, and this will receive the experience which was written from the getExperience method above. Alright, if I run the program, then you will receive the 5 in the output. Basically this will, so rather than directly emp.experience, rather than directly doing this, basically we have to use the getter method, get experience method. So that is the story of the getter and setter brothers. Now in the code I have mentioned all the code, and then I have written the definition of the getter methods which are used to retrieve the values of private field of a class. Setter method used to modify or set the value of private field of a class. Now you may ask why we are doing all this complex stuff, why we can't set fields directly, and yes, I will answer this. Basically the advantages of using the getter and setter methods in the upcoming question. Okay. Alright, if you are here, that means you are serious about Java interviews in the future. Remember, interviews are not like exams which happens once a year and you are failing or something like that. You will not get another chance. So there are thousands of companies and you are missing them if you are not giving interviews. Okay, so just start giving interviews. Alright, so in this chapter we will cover questions on inheritance, types of inheritance, multiple inheritance, types of polymorphism, and finally what is the difference between overloading and overriding. Okay, so let's start with the first question. What is inheritance and when to use inheritance in real applications? Very important and very frequently used concept in real applications. Let's learn by one real example. Suppose one company wants to create one employee management system application like this. Okay, now the company has two types of employees. One is permanent employees and temporary employees. For that, in the application, they have created two classes. One is permanent employee class with fields experience and functions get experience, set experience, calculate salary, and do fun. Okay, and another class is for temporary employees. Temporary employee class, field experience, some functions are there which is similar to permanent employee class, but this do work is a different function. Okay, so only few functions are different and most of the functions you can see are same in permanent employee and temporary employee class. So great. Now the question is why to have the duplicate functions with similar code in multiple classes. Alright, so to remove these duplicate functions from these classes, we will use the concept of inheritance. Now listen carefully. Like this, a base class, employee class will be created and all the common fields like experience was common and the function, common function, get experience, set experience, and calculate salary. So all these common functions will be placed in this parent class employee. Now definitely I will show you in the upcoming question the real code, but let's understand the concept. So after setting up this employee class, we will set the parent-child relationship between the class, parent and child class. Now the child class will automatically get and inherit the fields and functions of the base class. Okay, like a rich kid automatically inherit money from his rich parents, right? Even without having it. So then you can remove the written functions from both of their child classes, the duplicate function, because it is already present in their base class. And yes, remember, base, super, parent class are the same thing. Similarly, child, derived and subclass are the same thing. Now what will happen when you will create the object of these child classes, then you will automatically get the functions of their base classes also. Even those functions are not present here in the child classes, and that is the use of inheritance. Okay, this will enable the code reusability. Duplicate code is not required in multiple classes. Great. Now let's conclude the definition of inheritance. Inheritance is creating a parent-child relationship between two classes where child class will automatically get the properties and method of parent class. Okay. When should inheritance be used in application? The answer is for code reusability purpose. Multiple subclasses can reuse fields and methods from a superclass or a base class. So that is inheritance at conceptual level, and in the upcoming question I will show you the implementation of this. What are the different types of inheritance? When to use what? This is a very important question from interview point of view. So let's explore it quickly. The first type of inheritance is single inheritance, where you will be having one parent class and only one child class. Single. Okay. So here is the code. See, we have one parent one class, and in the child one class we are extending the parent one class. Okay, this is normal type of inheritance which we already know. The next type of inheritance is multi-level inheritance, and here is the illustration, where we have one parent one class, then one child, and after that we again have one child two class which is like a grandchild. Okay, and here is the code implementation. See, one parent one class, child one is extending parent one, and child two is extending child one. Okay, so like this. So that is how multi-level inheritance is. And here is very one important thing. Here this child 2 class, which is like a grandchild, will automatically get all the methods of the child 1. Yes, right? And even the parent 1 also. Okay, that is the important thing. So meaning child 2 class have no need to extend the parent 1 class separately. Okay, that is the thing. Now the third type of inheritance is hierarchical inheritance. And here is the illustration, where we have one parent one class, and which class is inherited in this multiple child classes, child 1, child 2, child 3, multiple can be. Okay, this is the most used and the most popular type of inheritance for reusability purpose. Alright, so here is the code. Here is the parent 1 class, which is inherited both in the child 1 parent 1 and then child 2 also parent 1 only. Now see, one function in parent 1 will be reused in multiple child classes. That is the benefit. After this, we have one hybrid inheritance also, which is like the combination of multi-level and hierarchical inheritance only. Great. I think now you know the types of inheritance in Java. And yes, there is one more type of inheritance which we call multiple inheritance, not multiple level, multiple. But Java does not support multiple inheritance. Now, why Java don't allow multiple inheritance? That we will cover in upcoming question. What is multiple inheritance? Does Java support it? Very interesting question. Here you can see the diagram of multiple inheritance. Here this child class trying to inheriting more than one base classes, parent classes. Okay, but this is not allowed in Java. A child class cannot extend or inherit more than one base class. Here is the code implementation of this same example. Two parent classes, parent class 1, parent class 2, and one child class which is trying to extend parent class 1, parent class 2. And this will, if you will try this code, then it will show you the compile time error. Okay, you cannot put here more than one classes. Second class is not allowed. Okay. Now the question is, why does not Java support multiple inheritance? What is the problem with this approach? Okay, that we will check out in upcoming question. What is the alternative to achieve multiple inheritance in Java? This is the ultimate question asked in many interviews, and the answer is here in this diagram. Okay, Java supports multiple inheritance of interfaces. Meaning at maximum only one parent class is accepted for the child class, but you can add multiple inheritance 1, 2, 3, 4 any numbers. You can say you can implement. For interfaces we use the word implement, and for classes we use the word extend. Okay, so let me quickly show you the code also. So suppose you have a parent class like this. Okay, so here we have a parent class and we have a parent method inside it. Then we have two interfaces. They are separate. Okay, you can create different files for them. And inside the interfaces, we only declare the methods. If you are new to interfaces, I will cover them separately. Then you can revisit this question. Okay. Now, in the child class, like this is the child class, you can extend only and only one parent class like this, but you can implement multiple interfaces 1, 2 like this. So this is not exactly the multiple inheritance, but it's like an alternative to multiple inheritance. Okay, and yes, as the rule of the interfaces, inside the child class, you have to implement them. Okay, implement the methods which are just declared here. You have to implement them in the derived class. Okay, great. So that is the logic, and that is the alternative way to implement the multiple inheritance via the interfaces in Java. Great. So now all the code I have pasted here in the book also. Like this, I have pointed out how the multiple interfaces can be implemented, and here I have also written the conclusion. Java support multiple inheritance of interfaces. So multiple interfaces and maximum one parent class can be inherited. That's it. What are the types of polymorphism? Very important question. If you remember, polymorphism means having multiple forms of the same name function like this, right? Now we have two types of polymorphism. The first one is the compile time polymorphism, and second is the runtime polymorphism. Okay, compile time polymorphism is again of two types: method overloading and operator overloading. Now here this example which I explained here, this is the example of the method overloading. Okay, this calculator class, single class, and inside we have multiple functions with same name, that is overloading method. Okay, and Then we have the operator overloading, which means that operators like plus, minus, divide, they can also have the different forms, but that is possible in C++ operator overloading. In Java operator you cannot overload the operator. Okay. Then inside the runtime polymorphism, we have the method overriding as its type. Now here is one suggestion. Initially when I started my career, I was not aware of these compile time and runtime words. So I was just say that method overloading and method overriding are the types of polymorphism, and that is also like a 90% correct answer. But now I will cover all of these things, like what is compile time, what is runtime, why method overloading is compile time, and what is static early binding and late binding. So that all I will cover in the upcoming questions. Okay. What are the 5 differences between overloading and overriding? Very important question asked in many interviews, and that's why I am asking 5 differences, not 1 or 2 differences. They are not enough, because if you know a question is important, then prepare as much as you can, right? Okay, so here first I will show you the side-by-side code. Here is the code of the method overloading, which I already explained, and here is the code of method overloading base class, and here is the child class of it. Okay, now I will point the differences here, and in the next slide all differences are written. The first and the most important difference is that in method overloading, multiple methods with the same name are there, but they are present in the same and single class. Yes, only one class is required for method overloading. Okay, whereas in method overriding, if you see, method names are same. Okay, and their signature is also same, but they are present in different class. So basically we override the parents class method in child class, and in overloading, so that we have only one class. Second difference is that in overloading, methods have the same name, but the parameter signature is different. Okay, meaning either the parameter type is different or the number of the parameters are different, right? But in method overriding, the method signature and name both must be same. Okay, nothing should be different. Then the third difference is method overloading is compile time polymorphism, since it is identified at compile time. But method overriding is runtime polymorphism because it is identified at runtime. This I explained in previous question. Next difference is method overloading, you do not need any annotation or any special keyword, right? Whereas in method overriding, this override annotation and keyword you require. Okay, in the child class above the overridden method. So basically it is overriding the superclass or base class method. Last difference is that constructors of the classes can be overloaded. Okay, multiple constructors can be overloaded, whereas constructors of the classes base class cannot be overridden in the derived class. And yes, constructors I will explain in upcoming questions separately. That is slightly more advanced, this last difference. But yes, these are the difference, and all these same differences I have written here in the next slide of the book. Understanding the concept is very important, but when a question is very important, then we should also remember some theory. Okay, this information in this book will help you in doing the quick and fastest revisions for your interviews, and at least you will remember 3 to 4 differences at least. I recommend that. Great. If you are here in this last chapter, it means you have the spirit. And my only advice to you for the interviews is the best advice: keep giving interviews and never ever give up. In this chapter, we will explore the questions on encapsulation and abstraction, and then what is the difference between them. And finally, what is the difference between abstract class and interface, when to use what. So let's start with the first question. What is encapsulation? Let me show you a very good example. You know the capsule medicine, okay, which contains two colors and two different medicines inside it like this, right? To cure some disease, you must take both these medicines together, and therefore the capsules are invented. If you only take one medicine, then there can be the side effects, right? Similarly, to create a good software or web application, encapsulation is a combination of function and data, or you can say fields, okay? Meaning, if you let the client or some other method access the data directly, then your application security can be in danger, your data can be in danger, okay? You must pass the data by first combining it with a function and then pass it, okay? In other words, if you have a class with fields and function inside it, so do not let the fields accessible outside the class directly. Rather, use the getter and setter functions to wrap the field or data within the function, and then only allow the access of the fields via the functions to the outside functions, classes, client, anything. Finally, here is the definition, simplest definition. Encapsulation is the bundling of data, fields, and functions into a single unit. Okay, single unit. Great. Now in upcoming question, I will show you how to implement encapsulation in code. How to achieve encapsulation or implementing encapsulation in Java. Let me show you the code example. And yes, if you already have understanding of getter and setter methods, then you already know 70% of the answer. Okay. Now suppose you have an employee class like this, and inside that you have the experience field, which is also called data. Both are same thing, okay, like this. Now inside the main method or in any other class, when you create the object of this employee class like this, you can create object, okay, this emp is the object, then you should not set the experience field above field inside there like this, emp object name dot field name equal to. So this is directly setting, which is not recommended, okay? First you have to make sure your experience field, your field should be private, so that your field is not accessible outside this class to make it secure. Then define a setter method like this to set the above experience field with the value which you are receiving in the parameter here using this keyword, okay? So this is setter method. Then you have to use the getter method. This is getter method to get the value of the field experience, okay? Now from the main method to set the value of the field, like this you can do. You can call the setter method, and here you have to pass the experience in the parameter argument, which will received here in the parameter, and then your experience field is set, okay? After setting the field, you will use the getter method like this to get the field value, okay? This will call the getter method here, which will return the field value experience, which you can also manipulate. That's why that's an example, okay? So that is how you can use the private field and the getter setter methods to implement encapsulation in your programs, okay, application. And yes, now the same code I have here mentioned, the same code it is, okay, and the same answer I have written here also. Encapsulation can be achieved by using access modifier private so that your field can be private, and then getters and setters methods. Okay, great. Now in the upcoming question, I will quickly show you some advantages of implementing encapsulation in your project. What is abstraction? How do you implement abstraction? So let me quickly explain with the help of an example. Suppose you are a web developer. You created one web application. Okay, you have the functionality and the code, right? Code is providing the functionality. Now, suppose there is an end user of your application which is accessing your application and using it. Now here you notice users are only aware about the functionality. Okay, they are not aware about the code, and especially if that is the backend code. And that is a very excellent thing, right? Why to show the complex code to the user? And if you are showing, it's not a security issue also, it's if it is so, because if user will know the code, then they might try to hack it. Okay, so hiding these background details or complex implementation is called abstraction. It's a concept. Okay, it's a general concept applicable anywhere. Okay, so here is the definition of abstraction. Abstraction means showing only required things and hiding the background details. Alright, and as I said, it's a very general thing, so it is applied outside also. For example, here is another example. Here a car driver knows how to drive the car, right? But the complex settings of the engine is hidden from the driver. Car driver do not need to know the complex working of the engine just to drive the car. Alright, so that is the benefit of abstraction. It makes things simple for end user or for anyone. So now listen carefully. The ultimate benefit of the abstraction is, by hiding complex implementation, abstraction makes things simpler for end users. That's it. Abstraction is a concept. Now the question is how to implement abstraction, and here is the answer. Mostly in coding, we use abstract classes and interfaces for implementing abstraction. Great. Now in the upcoming questions, I will tell you what are abstract classes, interfaces, is the difference between them, and what is the difference between abstraction and encapsulation, because there is some confusion in between them. Okay, so that I will explain in upcoming questions. What is the difference between abstraction and encapsulation? Most interviewers ask differences question, because by differences question they can check your two concepts. Okay, so let's see three differences here between them. First difference is just the definition. Abstraction means showing only required things and hiding the background details, whereas encapsulation means it's the bundling of data and functions into a single unit. So that is the first difference between them. Second difference is, abstraction simplifies complexity by hiding unnecessary details, whereas it's kind of advantage. Okay, whereas encapsulation protects the data by restricting its access only via the function. So that is the second difference. And encapsulation provide a concept, data hiding. But remember, data hiding is just about the data, whereas when we say complex setting by hiding unnecessary details in abstraction, so that can be anything, that can be function, that can be anything. It's a concept. Okay, where encapsulation is just about data hiding. Okay, next difference is, abstraction can be achieved by abstract classes and interfaces, right? Whereas encapsulation can be achieved by access modifiers and getter setter methods. I already explained all these points. So basically the first is definition, second is the benefit, third is the implementation. Alright, great. So these are the differences between abstraction and encapsulation. Now in the upcoming question we will explore about the abstract class and interfaces, which is again a very important question from interview point of view. Okay. What are the differences between an abstract class and an interface? At least 4 differences. Very important question, that's why 4. Okay. Here I will show you the code side by side, then show you the difference one by one. On the left side, we have one interface with all abstract methods, and then we are implementing that interface down here. Okay. And then on the right side, we have the code of the abstract class with one concrete method courses and one abstract method, and then we are just extending that abstract class here. Alright, now let's see the differences between them. The simplest difference is interfaces are defined by using the interface keyword. Okay, whereas abstract classes are defined by using the abstract keyword. Don't miss this kind of simple differences. They are very easy to say, right? Second difference is that interface supports multiple inheritance. Yes, here you can put multiple interfaces, you can implement multiple interfaces. But abstract class does not support multiple inheritance. You cannot extend more than one base class, abstract class. Okay, so that is the difference. Next difference is in interfaces, methods are implicitly abstract. What does it mean is, here you do not have to write the abstract keyword in the interfaces. Okay, no keyword is required. Whereas in abstract classes, you have to use the abstract keyword to make a method abstract. Okay. Next difference is interfaces cannot have constructors, right? Whereas an abstract class can have the constructor. Yes, it is possible in abstract class. Now you may ask, when we can't create the object of the interfaces and abstract class, then why do we need constructors for abstract class? So that I will explain in upcoming questions in constructors maybe, but yes, I will explain. And the last difference is interfaces can have default methods and abstract class cannot have default methods. Again, default methods I will explain shortly in the upcoming question. Okay, great. These are the 5 or 6 differences I think, and in the next slide I have written all of them in the book. What is the similarity and then what are the 5 differences, and that will be then very easier for you to revise later. When to use the interface and when the abstract classes in real application. So this is like a revision question, a very theoretical question. I am just concluding some points here, no code, and mostly I already explained. Okay, just a revision. So when should we use interfaces, and here are the top 3 reasons. An interface can be used to define contracts. With the implementing class must implement the methods, the contracts. Okay, will make classes more modular and structured. Your project actually. Interface is a good choice when you know you have methods to be there, but it can be implemented differently by different classes. Okay. Third reason when to use interface do separation of concerns, and because of that unit testing is very much simpler. So mocking objects, all these things are very easy if you have interfaces. Alright, now when to use abstract classes, and here is the reason. Abstract class is a good choice when you are sure some methods are concrete, defined, and must be implemented in the same way in all derived classes, and some methods are abstract and can be implemented differently by implementing them in the classes. So as you can see here, interfaces have more and more advantages. Therefore mostly we prefer interfaces because they give us the flexibility. to modify the behavior, the methods at the later stage. Okay, and they also provide complete abstraction, and also they help in unit testing. So that is the answer to this question, and I hope now you have clear about what are interfaces and what are all the things about it. Okay, so great. And in upcoming question, I will show you what is the difference between abstraction and abstract class, which you might be already knowing also. Alright, if you reached here and completed all the questions and answers, then great, and my best wishes are with you. First thing, just post your resume and start giving interviews. Be ready for rejections, because that is the part of the interview journey. Okay, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And yes, if you are interested in the complete interview course or this interview PDF book, then links are in the description. Finally, again, all the best, and never ever give up.